Wenceslaus I, c. 907 September 28, 935. Wenceslas I, or Václav the Good, was the Duke of Bohemia from 921 until his assassination in 935, in a plot by his younger brother, Boleslaus the Cruel. His martyrdom, and the popularity of several biographies, quickly gave rise to a reputation for heroic goodness, resulting in his being elevated to sainthood, posthumously declared king, and seen as the patron saint of the Czech state. He is the subject of Good King Wenceslas I and Stephen's Day Carol biography. Wenceslas was the son of Vladislaus I, Duke of Bohemia from the Přemysly dynasty. His grandfather, Borovoj I of Bohemia, was converted by Saints Cyril and Methodius. His mother, Drahomira, was the daughter of a pagan tribal chief of Havellands, but was baptized at the time of her marriage. His paternal grandmother, Ludmila of Bohemia, oversaw his education, and at an early age, Wenceslas was sent to the college at Budweis. In 921, when Wenceslas was 13, his father died and his grandmother became regent. Jealous of the influence which Ludmila wielded over Wenceslas, Drahomira arranged to have her killed. Ludmila was at Teton Castle near Berun when assassins murdered her on September 15, 921. She is said to have been strangled by them with her veil. She was at first buried in the church of St. Michael at Teton, but her remains were later removed, probably by Wenceslas, to the church of St. George in Prague, which had been built by his father. Drahomira then assumed the role of regent, and immediately initiated measures against the Christians. When Wenceslas came of age, he took control of the government. He placed the duchy under the protection of Germany, introduced German priests, and favored the Latin Rite instead of the Old Slavic, which had gone into disuse in many places for want of priests. To prevent disputes between him and his younger brother, Boleslav, they divided the country between them, assigning to the latter a considerable territory. Reign after the fall of Great Moravia, the rulers of the Bohemian Duchy had to deal both with continuous raids by the Magyars, and the forces of the Saxon Duke and East Frankish King Henry the Fowler, who had started several eastern campaigns into the adjacent lands of the Palabian Slavs, homeland of Wenceslas's mother. To withstand Saxon overlordship, Wenceslas's father, Vladislaus, had forged an alliance with the Bavarian Duke Arnulf the Bad, at the time a fierce opponent of King Henry. However, it became worthless when Arnulf and Henry reconciled at Regensburg in 921. In 924 and 925, at the age of 18, Wenceslas assumed leadership of the government, and had Drahomira exiled. He then defeated a rebellious Duke of Kurim named Radzislav. He also founded a rotunda consecrated to Saint Vitus at Prague Castle in Prague, which exists as present-day St. Vitus Cathedral. Early in 929, the joint forces of Duke Arnulf of Bavaria and King Henry I the Fowler reached Prague in a sudden attack, which forced Wenceslas to resume the payment of a tribute which had been first imposed by the East Frankish king, Arnulf of Carinthia, in 895. Henry had been forced to pay a huge tribute to the Magyars in 926, and needed the Bohemian tribute, which Wenceslas probably refused to pay after the reconciliation between Arnulf and Henry. Another possible reason for the attack was the formation of the anti-Saxon alliance between Bohemia, the Palabian Slavs, and the Magyars. Murder in September 935, a group of nobles allied with Wenceslas's younger brother, Boleslav, plotted to kill Wenceslas. After Boleslav invited Wenceslas to the feast of Saints Cosmas and Damian in Stara Boleslav, three of Boleslav's companions, Tira, Sesta, and Nefsa, fell on the Duke and stabbed him to death. As the Duke fell, Boleslav ran him through with a lance. According to Cosmas of Prague, one of Boleslav's sons was born on the day of Wenceslas's death, and because of the ominous circumstance of his birth, the infant was named Strachvas, which means a dreadful feast. There is a tradition which states that St. Wenceslas's loyal servant, Podevan, avenged his death by killing one of the chief conspirators, but was executed by Boleslav. Veneration. Wenceslas was considered a martyr and a saint immediately after his death, when a cult of Wenceslas grew up in Bohemia and in England. Within a few decades of Wenceslas's death, 4 biographies of him were in circulation. These hagiographies had a powerful influence on the High Middle Ages conceptualization of the Rex Justice, or righteous king, that is, a monarch whose power stems mainly from his great piety, as well as from his princely vigor. Referring approvingly to these hagiographies, the chronicler Cosmas of Prague, writing in about the year 1119, states, "But his deeds I think you know better than I could tell you, for, as is read in his Passion, no one doubts that, rising every night from his noble bed, with bare feet and only one chamberlain, he went around to God's churches and gave alms generously to widows, orphans, those in prison and afflicted by every difficulty, so much so that he was considered, not a prince, but the father of all the wretched." Several centuries later, the legend was claimed as fact by Pope Pius II. Although Wenceslas was, during his lifetime, only a duke, Holy Roman Emperor Otto I posthumously conferred on the regal dignity and title, and that is why, in the legend and song, he is referred to as a king. The hymn Svatý Václav, or St. Wenceslas Chorale, is one of the oldest known Czech songs in history. Its roots can be found in the 12th century and it still belongs to the most popular religious songs to this day. In 1918, in the beginning of the Czechoslovak state, the song was discussed as one of the possible choices for the national anthem. His feast day is celebrated on September 28, while the translation of his relics, which took place in 938, is commemorated on March 4. Since 2000, the feast day of St. Wenceslas is a public holiday in the Czech Republic, celebrated as the Czech statehood day. Wenceslaus in legend. According to one legend, one Count Radislas rose in rebellion and marched against Wenceslas, the latter, sending him a deputation, made offers of peace, but Radislas viewed the king's message as a sign of cowardice. The two armies were drawn up opposite each other in battle array, when Wenceslas, to avoid shedding so much innocent blood, challenged Radislas to single combat. As Radislas advanced toward the duke, he saw, by the side of Wenceslas, 2 angels who cried to him, "Stand off." This cry acted like a thunderbolt upon Radislas, and changed his intentions. Throwing himself from his horse, he fell at the saint's feet, and asked for pardon. Wenceslas raised him and kindly received him again into favor. A second enduring legend claims a huge army of knights sleep inside Blanik, a mountain in the Czech Republic. The knights will awaken under the command of St. Wenceslaus and bring aid to the Czech people when they face ultimate danger. There is a similar great legend in Prague which says that when the motherland is in danger or in its darkest times and close to ruin, the equestrian statue of King Wenceslas in Wenceslas Square will come to life, raise the army sleeping in Blanik, and upon crossing the Charles Bridge his horse will stumble and trip over a stone, revealing the legendary sword of Brunswick. With this sword, King Wenceslas will slay all the enemies of the Czechs, bringing peace and prosperity to the land. Ogden Nash wrote a comic epic poem, The Christmas That Almost Wasn't, loosely based on the same legend, in which a boy awakens Wenceslas and his knights to save the kingdom from usurpers who have outlawed Christmas. Legacy. Wenceslaus is the subject of the popular St. Stephen's Day carol, Good King Wenceslas. It was published by John Mason Neale in 1853, and may be a translation of a poem by Czech poet Václav Alois Svoboda. The usual American-English spelling of Duke Wenceslas's name, Wenceslas, is occasionally encountered in later textual variants of the carol, although it was not used by Neale in his version. Wenceslas is not to be confused with King Wenceslaus I of Bohemia, who lived more than 3 centuries later. An equestrian statue of St. Wenceslaus and other patrons of Bohemia is located on Wenceslas Square in Prague. The statue is a popular meeting place in Prague. Demonstrations against the communist regime were held there. His helmet and armor are on display inside Prague Castle. In popular culture, the 1994 television film Good King Wenceslas is a highly fictional account of his early life. The film stars Jonathan Brandis in the title role, supported by Leo McKern, Stephanie Powers, and Joan Fontaine as Ludmilla. A 1987 BBC radio play by Alec Rowe, crisp and even brightly, starring Timothy West as Wenceslas, is a comic retelling of the story of the carol, involving a page called Mark and spies seeking the downfall of the king. Genealogy.